Every now and then, something will happen on a worksite that potentially changes everything. Unfortunately, it often takes a serious incident to change conditions and behaviour. At Boral Cement Limestone Mine Marulan, such an incident with haul truck driver David Bartholomew provoked a complete review of how they approach dumping and led to the innovation of revolutionary new dump stops. David knows firsthand how easy it is to lose control in a situation.
A few years back, we were building a ramp, moving across, because we wanted to mine the rock underneath the existing ramp. Because it was a very rainy, wet night, it was slippery, and we would come in, turn to the right, and the truck was sliding a bit, and then you'd reverse up and slide a bit more. And we come up to the bunding, which is the big pile of dirt down the side of the haul road, and just happened to hit an area of the bunding that was particularly low, and I hit the edge and the back wheels just went over, and I hit the brakes and the truck just kept sliding.
I got the phone call about 10:30, just after 10:30, to say that this incident had happened and that there was a truck hanging over the edge. The fellas down the bottom responded very quickly. It was an emergency. Everybody, all hands were on deck.
First of all, we put a incident controller in place, and that was Brian, and I said, listen mate, I'm going straight down here, I need you to make some calls for me and just stay near the two-way.
I received a call over the two-way that a truck was over the edge while it was tipping from another loader operator. Radio silence was evident then, no one talked. I went to the incident, saw the truck hanging over the edge. The first thing was to make sure Dave was all right.
Luckily, as it was leaning quite a lot, the front tyres hooked on the bunding on the left-hand side, and I stopped.
We got down there and I got the loader, and got the loader up to where the truck went over, where Dave, and first thoughts was just to reassure Dave, you know, are you okay, Dave?
I was hugging the steering wheel. I was pretty worried, but people said that I didn't sound worried, but I was really quite worried.
We got down, talked about it, assessed that we needed to secure the truck.
We got the loader up. The other plantman grabbed our snatch straps, and we hooked up the strap and went into the emergency plan.
I brought my loader over and secured another strap to make sure it wasn't going anywhere, and then we got Dave out of the truck at that stage when we knew everything was safe.
Once we'd secured the loader and brought the truck back away from the edge, the then mine manager and myself and Jamie pulled up the whole shift, and we sat down and we had a good discussion on the safety of what had just happened.
The way they followed up that incident was quite impressive in my opinion. Often with long-term employees on an old established site, you know, they'll often rely on luck, if you like. You know, wasn't it lucky we got away with it that time, you know, and get on with business. But that's certainly not the way they approached this incident.
The following day we got the mining inspectors out, and we sat down as a team and did significant investigations into this and to how we're going to deal with this and what it would mean for us into the future. That investigation yielded quite a few results in terms of actions and recommendations that we put forward, and we made some significant changes in process, in procedures, and probably most of all to our own attitudes about how we dealt with things around the site.
We moved into the next role of trying to prevent this ever happening again, which with the guys, so we got a lot of guys talking. We sat down a lot of toolbox meetings and come up with the idea of, you know, improving dump stops and putting dump stops on edges of bunding.
We sat down and we thought about the dump stops, and we had those engineered and brought those to site. They've been one of the safest things we've put in place. Every operator on site now comes in, they can tip their load off and knowing that that's been set up right, it's been tested, and they're not going to go over the edge. Very efficient, very safe. It keeps the dumps nice and tidy.
The way the dump stop works is you can see it's a fairly hefty mass of steel. It weighs approximately 12 tonne. But the principle, the way it works is it relies on the mass of the haul trucks to hold it on the ground. What we've incorporated in design is some channel line stiffening across the bottom of the base plate. When you put a 100 plus tonne truck on top of that, that holds those stiffeners bedded into the ground.
There's a good peace of mind with these dump stops being put in place now. When the operators back up to them, they know they're safe.
They're installed by the use of one of our 2993 front end loaders. You know, you don't need to use a mobile crane in a muddy, dirty mine where you actually use the front end loader, where the operators are actually self-sufficient in that respect, where if they need to relocate dumping stations, you know, they can do it all themselves without relying on a crane operator or somebody to do that.
Yeah, all the truck drivers are happy to tip off those now, and much more safe way to operate.
Being the supervisor on that night and having that happen to you, you know, going from a point that you don't think that these things can sort of happen to actually it happen, it makes you think a lot. There's sometimes you think, you know, have I done the right thing today before you go home that night? It makes you set up your next shift properly. It starts you talking a lot about safety, and that's the main thing. Our toolbox talks, our safety talks of the mornings and every shift change, they become paramount on this site. And we like to involve all the employees. We want to make sure that everything they bring up safety orientated is addressed.
The dump stops, along with improvements to safety culture, has helped transform the Marulan site and decrease the number of incidents overall. In this case, tragedy was averted, lessons were learned, and new strategies and technologies were created to avoid it ever happening again.
When I put the car up and dropped Dave off, I could actually see Dave walk up, and his wife was standing out the front at the door, and she hugged him. I waited there for a little while after that, and when they walked inside, all I could think about was how lucky he was to come home and how the circumstances could have been much different.